Radio Arson, le podcast de la bibliothèque de la Villa Arson.
Mardi 7 avril 2026, le Centre d'art de la Villa Arson a organisé une rencontre exceptionnelle avec Hito Steyerl, figure majeure de l'art contemporain. Cette rencontre prend appui sur l'exposition personnelle offerte à Hito Steyerl par la Villa Arson, présentée dans la Galerie Carrée du 20 février au 31 mai 2026, exposition composée uniquement de sa dernière œuvre, l'installation vidéo Mechanical Kurds. Avant d'écouter des morceaux choisis de la discussion animée par Mathilde Roman et Marie-Ann Yemsi en amphithéâtre, Hito Steyerl s'est entretenu avec un étudiant, Maël Desbordes. Je le laisse se présenter.
Bonjour, je suis Maël Desbordes, élève en 3e année à la Villa Arson, promo 2025-2026. En avril dernier, j'ai eu l'opportunité de mener une interview avec Hito Steyerl lors de sa venue à Nice et d'aborder les thèmes de Mechanical Kurds, dont le sujet est loin d'être anodin pour Steyerl. En effet, le Kurdistan résonne tristement dans son histoire personnelle, puisque son ami d'enfance et militante de gauche Andrea Wolf y a été exécuté par l'armée turque après avoir rejoint le Parti des travailleurs kurdes. Avec Mechanical Kurds, Steyerl revient sur ce territoire, mais la nature de la guerre a changé. En plus d'être physique et matérielle, la violence est devenue numérique et algorithmique. En montrant que l'intelligence artificielle n'a rien de magique, mais est simplement le résultat de calculs informatiques basés sur des banques de données nourries par le travail de populations vulnérables, Hito Steyerl explore un de ses sujets primordiaux, qu'est la déconstruction du discours techno-utopiste. Rendre visible l'infrastructure cachée de la technologie est le moteur principal du travail d'Hito Steyerl. Mais comment y parvient-elle ? Comment trace-t-elle ce fameux pont entre le spectateur occidental et le réfugié kurde présent à l'écran et premier rouage de la machine IA ? Ces questions, nous allons en aborder certaines dans l'entretien qui va suivre. When you were a student at the University of Television and Film in Munich, how did you perceive your future? What were your expectations for life after graduation?
This unemployment, I guess.
Okay.
There was a 100% probability for unemployment. Yes. Yeah, because I did not fit into that industry. I studied documentary film, and there was just absolutely zero possibility that I could find work in TV or anything like that.
After, your artistic career began with documentary filmmaking and later expanded into video art for galleries. How did this shift occur?
I think gradually over time I had to learn how it worked, so it took a while. It was a steep learning curve because I had, of course, never learned to do multi-channel or anything in space. So basically the whole 3D aspect, the spatial aspect took a long time for me to work.
And now the form of video art in gallery, do you think is the best form for you to express yourself, or maybe?
I came into the museum because I was very happy that there was a dark space that wanted to screen my work. So I'm still happy if that happens. But it's not ideal, of course. It's not ideal in terms of video. It's not ideal in terms of access. It's not ideal in terms of audience. But it is what it is. Yeah, you know very well you cannot screen basically any video work with sound in a gallery because the insulation is just awful. You will have a lot of echo. The sound will always be bad. There is only a specific type of audience that will be interested in video art. It's not very broad, let's put it like that. So there is, of course, there are some limitations. Yeah.
Yeah, I see. And also the public can come and go at any time during the video.
Yeah.
So it changed a lot about the work of the editing and writing.
Yeah.
What do you think about this thing of the fact that people in museum can go and can come and go at any moment of the video?
Well, it's a challenge for the filmmaker, I guess. You know, I always used to say that cinema is like a jail, because once people are sat in their chair, usually they don't leave. They, you know, because other people are watching them and it's embarrassing and so on. But you don't get that in a museum. You have to keep people engaged at any point in time. Otherwise, they will just abandon you. Ciao.
In Medium Hot, you discuss the washing practiced by tech giants like Palantir through digital arts exhibition. What would you say to a young artist offered the opportunity to exhibit in a show sponsored by such a company?
Well, I would say think about it. I would never say don't do it, because the pressures are so high to get any sort of visibility. But it comes with strings attached, you know, this kind of opportunity. So just think about it.
And you think exhibition who are sponsored by this company are going to expand, and we will see much more of tech giants sponsor exhibition, or it's just a thing of the moment?
I think it was a thing of the moment, right? Because now there is a lot of war. So those companies like Palantir, they will sell their products with or without art. You know, they don't need any more art. War is enough, right? But this was before permanent war started, let's put it like this, and they were trying very hard to sell, you know, their database software to the German government. So yes, they needed art at this point in time just to reach the audience, to reach the public, to give interviews in newspapers and so on. I think nowadays it's no longer necessary.
Have you ever taught at an art at an art school or film school? If not, would you be interested in doing so? And if so, what would be your approach to the pedagogy of digital arts?
I think I've taught now since around 25 years, more or less. I wouldn't be able to make a living if I wasn't teaching, so I don't know. I've never thought about an alternative to teaching, to be honest. And I think we are very fortunate as teachers of digital arts, because we learn with the students, right? Because the technology is always new and cutting edge, so we have no idea, the students have no idea. It's a great chance to explore it together.
You like to mix editing, mapping?
Yeah. I've learned most of it, you know. I mean, constantly I keep learning new things, but I really wonder how this is going to change now with generative AI, whether, you know, even if you put yourself through learning something really complicated like Cinema 4D, is it even necessary? What happens to all that knowledge? And, you know, I've when I learned at school to make films, I was using equipment that today does not exist anymore, like the Nagra recording device and things like that, right? And I think most of those softwares that we are used to will disappear just like that in the next wave of technological upheaval.
Yeah. And by the way, how do you see the coming of AI, like a new age, similar to the beginning of photography, or it's another thing?
Well, I mean, it's definitely another thing. It's not photography, so I think that's already clear. But apart from that, it's very hard to tell because it's so early, right? So, I mean, what we see is, of course, we have generative AI, video generators and so on, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. But AI has already migrated into all the softwares you mentioned. I mean, there's hardly anything within all these functions that works without AI. And I think that there it will have a tremendous effect. But, for example, the only way I use AI right now is to build new software to do, my own operations with it. So I'm not making images with it, I'm building tools right now. And I think there will also be tremendous changes.
Yeah. And how we can build our own AI and
yes, we're also doing that, by the way. We're just training our own image generation model, which is super fascinating because there's so many different steps. And you realize that each of the steps is an aesthetic decision. It's an aesthetic decision, it's also a political decision, right? And so, and basically all of this will somehow influence the images that this machine will generate at the end. You just don't know why or how, but certainly it will make a difference. So it's a aesthetic and political machine, this thing, really.
And with what sort of image do you feed the AI?
That's interesting. So this training data set was made by two colleagues of mine, Matt Dryhurst and Holly Herndon. They put together what they call public diffusion. It's the first data set of images that have clear rights or that are in the public domain or have Creative Commons rights situation. So basically the rights for all the images have been cleared. But they ran out of money to actually train the model. So because we have access to our university computer, we are trying to do that now.
Okay, and do you put some images which you have taken in this bank of AI, or just image of public commons?
Yes, until now it's just the things we have taken out of the public domain. We added some new ones, because what Matt and Ollie had assembled is a lot. It's 34 million images. It's really a lot. It's great. But it's missing, certain newer types of photography. So we tried to find some of that, etc., etc. And I'm still not decided whether I will add my own images or not. Yeah.
Okay. And do you have some interesting results?
Well, not yet.
Not yet.
Not yet. But we have interesting questions. For example, one question is, there is something called the aesthetic score. So you have a lot of photos or images, right? And then someone comes and rates it aesthetically. Usually it's a machine, but the machine is trained on the output of a very small group of people who rank those images. And then you ask the people, okay, but who does it? What are the criteria? And they say, oh, it's a Discord on Midjourney, for example, right? So now we're experimenting with different types of aesthetic scores. What are the criteria for an aesthetic score? Should it be people? We have now a focus group of art historians doing the aesthetic score. Should it be, in brackets, objective? Now we have a quantum scorer, which just looks at the color entanglement values and so on. So we're testing different things to see how different aesthetic scores will influence the outcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I think AI and stuff like this are, in a way, so fascinating. It's like another world, just side of us. So I understand.
Yeah, it's super fascinating. But you see that basically the things that people use, the generators, are black boxes. People don't know, about all those decisions, about all these scores, about the different steps, about the training data that go in and so on. Yeah. So we're just trying to open the box and, try to put it back together and see what comes out at the end.
To see the skeleton of this software.
The skeleton of AI.
Yeah, yes. That's it.
Yeah.
And to finish, I had one final question. Do you have hope for the future, and specifically for the future of cinema and the moving image?
That's a good question. So number one, the future will come. That's for sure, because there's entropy and time passes. How it will look like, I don't know. Number two, moving image and cinema. You know, cinema has proven quite resilient until now. I mean, at several points I thought, no, it's not really going to continue. I mean, there was reality TV and streaming and, you know, all other sorts of things. But somehow it always came back. So for now, it seems to be pretty resilient. But I'm not sure about how this will look like in 100 years, you know. I always have the fear with cinema that it's going to be a new opera somehow. You know, that's something which is still alive and has its canon and people watch it, you know, but it's not really of the present. But this is not the case yet.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great, thanks.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Maybe I will draw a kind of parallel with Nathalie Magnan, just to start with, because when we decided to do this exhibition, I really wanted to have a solo exhibition that could resonate, and the only idea I had was you. So I was so glad that you accepted without even knowing. We never worked together before, and it was important. Why? Because you are both video artists, media theorists, and teachers with clearly articulated feminist positions. Probably what links you most, in my view, is your attention not to the use of images or new technology, but to the invisible infrastructures or superstructures that produce effects of domination, extraction, and also precarization, as we saw in Mechanical Kurds and Marie-Ann, as well as to the militarizations of this new technology. My question now, why is it so important for you to make visible what is deliberately concealed, to carry out these acts of deconstruction within the space of art where you work and are recognized today, rather than, for example, as the documentary filmmaker?
Well, thanks for this question. Thanks to all of you for coming tonight. So it's both shows are like media archives, right? When I go to Nathalie's show, I see a history of media apart from everything else that's there also, you know. Of the early internet, I see the, you know, Hunter-X box TVs, etc. All of those do not really exist anymore. I mean, they exist, but they are not in use. And if I see my films, then it's kind of the same. You know, this early AI doesn't exist anymore. These drones, when I started filming them, they were basically babies in their infancy before they really started killing. So in a way, it's like an archive of obsolete media, if you will. But I think each of us tried to basically portray this media when they were still alive, when they were there, when they were present. So I think that's the relationship I see. And in terms why am I not a documentarist, I always say I'm a failed documentarist, and I continue to be a failed documentarist, a person that could never work in this medium. That's what I studied. But when I started to try to start working, the industry collapsed. So that didn't happen. But I think, especially now, under the influence of generative AI, also going back or forward to documentary is probably not a bad idea. And many of my recent works have become way more documentary, because this is one thing that the algorithm cannot really capture still. You know, the relation that happens between people, actually.
There's something, it's interesting to say that you're a failed documentarist. I mean, that's your opinion, but you keep on have a research-based process in a lot of your artworks, even though it's blended with other fictional narratives. There is also two things that we are often asked. I speak to the mediation team, they're here, is like, what is your process of working, or how do you work? And the second question, because it connects the installation and the first film, why do you choose to explore this region of the world?
Second question first. I chose these three films because actually there's one and the same person in them. In the first film, you hear her in the voiceover. In the second film, it's basically her story, which she's telling. In the voiceover, she definitely went to jail during the time we shot the first film, etc. And in the third film, which you see upstairs, she's again there singing. So basically, it's almost like a trilogy of different states of this person called Heja Türk, who is singing in the last film, but in very, very different variations. And actually, it's all documentary to some degree, because all the stories we are telling are kind of true. Yeah, so that was the reason. I think, in fact, if you look at all the works I'm doing, films that are in the region are maybe 10% or 15%, but I kept going back since 98, when a friend of mine died in this area, getting shot by the Turkish army as a Kurdish militia member, guerrilla. So since then, I've been going back to this region.
Just wanted you to talk a little bit more on how you work and how you include this position of a viewer, and how you think about this transition from the cinema, where you're from, and to the exhibition spaces where you are dealing with.
When I started working in exhibition space, I realized I was fucked, and my films were also fucked, because it was impossible, you go into a space, the sound is always terrible, there's plain daylight. When you try to do a projection, nothing works, people are going, there is no seats, there is no benches, there is nothing. So started trying to deal with it, because I realized after a while, basically, I don't know what an installation is, but I know that for every video I have to build basically its own cinema, right? A cinema which makes sense with what the video is trying to do. And it may take this form or that form. In the beginning it was rather simple, and I think it's actually best when it's simple, but there's always some elements from the movie which start appearing in real space. And I definitely try to take care of people being able to have a seat to watch the film, because I think it's awful that people have to stand, watching video art. They also don't do it. That's also my experience. And also for most of the time, my daughter was really small, so I needed a place which was dark where she could go to sleep. And so you find this in most of my installations.
But sometimes it's very comfortable. Sometimes we can lay down, but sometimes also we can see some animosity with a display, and you are sometimes very aggressive with the displays, and you create some very specific atmosphere where we don't really feel comfortable, but maybe that's part of the thing.
Yes, I think it's part of the. I started after a while to realize that you can also, push people. There is the concept of hostile architecture, and sometimes I really create hostile architecture with the installations. I don't know. Do you know this crazy prison which existed? Supposedly, it's not 100% confirmed, in fascist Spain in the 30s. They built a prison for prisoners, political ones, where they were subjected to constructivist prison furniture. The idea being that this would be torture. So that's something I very often think about when I make installations. Yeah.
Yeah, and when you say that you take something from the film and that you put it into the real space, that's something that we have here with the Mechanical Kurds, because you are these films talks about latent spaces, and you produce it for the poem exhibitions, which was a collective exhibition on IA, and really try to think about that and how latent spaces could be. We can't imagine them, but how can we fictionalize them, make some fiction to try to help us to have some, maybe some, to understand them a little bit more and not to be passive. And I think it's very interesting and important for you to create some active position for us to try not to be only passive in this context of these technologies that are surrounding us and how we can look at them and stand in front of them. I don't know if you can talk about this, how you to try to bring these architectural spaces to fictionalize latent spaces.
Technically we have to say the latent space is not what we see in the film. We see these bounding boxes, right? And they are overlays that would be drawn or tagged by the micro workers, but they are not representations of the latent space. They are representations of the work that the people are doing.
Of the click workers.
Exactly, yeah. And of course, I was trying to pull them out into real space because I think that's what happens, right? Everyone is running around with invisible boxes, basically, nowadays. And just because you don't see the boxes doesn't mean that they are always there. They can be commercial, they can be targeted advertising or other kind of targeting, police, military, any kind of. So the boxes are real. It's just that usually you can't see them.
Just as an extension of what you mentioned, I had the impression by living the experience of the bench, the sculptural elements that I was thinking, and I was asking myself, maybe is a tactic. Hito is using this approach as a tactic to sharpen the viewer's attention, and to invite us to think outside established frameworks, because we're kind of trapped in that architecture. And I was wondering, is it the strengths of your art or the strengths of art in general? Don't know.
That's no answer. To say.
Well, I would say it's the strengths of your art, because it's like each installation, you remind us the Pompidou exhibitions, and I would like to say that this is a future is presented as an installation. So if you want to get a sense of it, you have to review or see films of this installation. I have also a question that connects all the films, a lot of productions. It's the music, text and music. And it's so obvious that they are extremely important. Would you say a few words on how you think the choice, how the rhythm? Once we spoke about also the choreography of the bodies and the images in the film are so important.
Yeah, they're very often dancing people.
Of course, better.
And very often the music is commissioned specifically for the work. So for the second one, This Is the Future, there was this great guy called Koji Radical who made a whole album, for that specific work. And usually I hardly give any directions. I give a few keywords. This film is going to be about the future. It will have some kind of artificial intelligence thing in it, and just go. And this amazing piece of poetry came out. But then again, it changes my film because then I have to adapt, to it. It's not what I planned usually, so I have to basically rearrange everything to what the music is. The same with Hesha's music in Mechanical Kurds. I mean, this is a traditional way of storytelling in Kurdistan, but she just, made basically new lines for it. But also I didn't really know what it was going to be, and then I had to readapt to it. But I think it's one of the most important elements of storytelling. And this is not only by the lyrics, but also by the rhythms, by the texture, by the emotions that the music creates.
Editing is a very important part in your work. Could you just talk a little bit about how you work with editing?
Oh, editing, yeah.
Are you working by yourself, or how do you?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, editing, mixing. I mean, just ask me what I don't do myself, because most of it by now it's CGI. Everything it's just to do with is inversely proportional to the amount of budget. Yeah, a lot of budget, not so much work, but this never happens. Yeah.
There's a lot of special editing also, like with power plants. The film we've seen, the second films, it was made for Venice in the Arsenal, and it was a very specific installation. We were circulating into a construction site, and there was a lot of different LED screens, and you were also creating a very an atmosphere with this that was making sense. And how do you bring this kind of material to this kind of film we've seen tonight, which is so different? And it's really two different versions?
No, it's exactly the same.
Exactly the same?
Yeah, it just looks very different.
Yeah, the experience was completely different for me.
Completely, yeah. So basically, if you have supporting elements, whether it's other projections. In Venice, it was all underwater stuff. Seaweed and fishes and whatnot, also rendered in this AI, early AI aesthetics, or actually as early AI. And also I used the aqua alte, gangways, so you can stay over water, theoretically at least. So these were parts of the installation. Yes, but for this film I also trained every model, and it means every model because in this technology you needed one model per shot. Each shot needed its own model, and so the ratio was 1 in 3 would work, the other 2 would completely fail, there was just noise, and each of these attempts would take 6 to 8 hours. So it took a really, really long time to just train the models to make this. Yeah. More than a year, I think. It was really, really boring. Yeah.
And when we mentioned Nathalie Magnan, I think that something was very interesting in both your situation. As you are both interested in hacking also technologies, and I wanted to talk a little bit about how you use the LED screens in your last installation, because when you started making films, it was the projections times where with moving image were always, I think, projected into spaces, and now more and more artists are using LED screens, and I wanted to know more how you deal with it, because of course there are screens that come from advertisement, from this very, that's a very specific economy also that you are using, and how you create from this context and how you deal with this. And
it's the only way to put a sort of moving image into a lit space, right? And many art spaces, they have really difficult time darkening spaces. So this is one of the only ways. For example, Mechanical Kurds, I remembered we planned it as a projection, but I wanted to have the boxes glowing you know, so it would be a dark room, but glowing boxes. So the glowing boxes failed. So we had to basically in every bright space use LED. That also has another materiality, you know, it becomes an object in space, whereas a projection is very often sort of an immersive virtual space, right? So there's different impressions.
Do you feel you are hacking technologies when you are using LED screens?
If I feel
that you are hacking these technologies or hijacking technologies, that you are creating something really different? No, it's not this activist position where you...
Yeah, but also, you know, in projection, often I have the feeling I'm not using the projector in any way different, you know, than it would be used here. Yeah.
Maybe before we open up the floor to questions, there's something else that connects you to Nathalie Magnan, is the sense of humor. We saw that in your film, in your production. But I will come back, and the perception one might have of your work is sometime, and we mentioned that this afternoon, is a kind of space of opacity, like in reference of what Edouard Glissant developed. And I feel it's a very comfortable space because it allows us to dream, to make our own sense of, or maybe not to get what you're doing, and that's fine. Is it on purpose? Are you, do you realize this? Like that you let us alone. Actually, the viewer is not, you don't direct us to think about something, or and yeah, it's really a space where one can project almost everything, and yeah, are you conscious of that, or is it semi-conscious?
So maybe this also has to do that a lot of the material is really documentary. So basically the people, they don't always agree with me, right? But I have to let them speak since since they made the effort to talk to me. So basically often I try to create a space where it's not even what I think that is on the screen. It's a panorama, you know, of different perspectives, and then I myself have a certain view on it, and I'm aware that other people will have other views. That's kind of normal. That's even in the film already. Yeah. But I mean, can I talk about opacity for a second? Because I made a film once which was called How Not to Be Seen. So this was all about, you know, disappearing into pixel boxes and so on. And I still believe this is very important, to find these spaces where you cannot be seen, you cannot be targeted, you cannot be found, surveilled, etc., etc. But since I've been dealing really quite a lot with these latent spaces, right, of the models, of the machine learning models, this is also a very opaque space. I mean, really, I can barely think of a space that is more opaque than this, because it's extremely dense, right, and made of so many layers of intransparency, which you need to really carefully untangle, because from one layer to the other is very, very difficult to know what happens, right? So this is a very, well, you know, I tried to be more neutral, but this is, I wish there was more transparency in this kind of space, yeah. Because, right, more often than not, it's a black box, yeah.
Hello, Hito. I'm here. I would like to ask you about your statement concerning the artificial intelligence. And if I understood correctly, you use the local AI models that you are training by yourself. And is it your statement, or just an artistic artistic choice, and I'm asking it because for some theorists, the AI is considered as a techno-fascist tool. So
a vector-fascist
techno-fascist tool.
Oui, yeah,
yes. So, but local models, it's not really considered as like that. So that's the difference between like big data AI. So I was wondering, I just would like to know your statement about it. I'm really curious.
So,
thank you.
Yeah. Interestingly, those people that call AI models vector-fascist use it the most. That's the case. But I don't think it's a contradiction, and I will explain why. So these models you have seen, and this is the future, they are so-called GAN models, generative adversarial. They do not exist. It's an outdated, I mean, it's no one uses these. Of course, they exist. It's outdated. And these you could train locally with quite few data. A few hundred images would be enough to do that. Now everyone has moved on into so-called, diffusion transformer models and whatnot, and for that you need shitloads of data to train it and shitloads of compute. And even if the result is a small local model which you can run on your hard drive, so there the question starts to have many, many components, right? Because just because your model is small and runs on your hard drive doesn't make it transparent or ethical, because usually it's trained on data that were stolen from everyone else, etc., etc., etc. So there is a lot of moving parts there to consider. And I don't have a definite answer, because I don't think the question has even started to be tackled yet. I mean, I really only use these big models. I don't use Vio or that kind of stuff at all, but I use only Chinese models to make fun of them sometimes. But otherwise, I don't use the big generative AI corporate models at all. But I'm trying to train a new one from scratch, a diffusion transformer, so it's a big one. And I don't know whether, first of all, it will be small enough to run locally in the end, because you never know before you start. And then every step is a new question, a new problem. And you realize that even if you have all of them somehow under control and try to do it ethically, you still don't know what the fuck these things are doing in the end, right? So it's to be determined, I think. Yeah.
Thank you.
Hi, thank you for everything. I was wondering about, actually I have one question and one, other one, but first, about the transparency of the latent space. You say you would like it to be more transparent. I just wonder how, because this opacity is mainly made by the structure himself of the EA, about the, like you said, it's enormous of operation on different layers. So to make it more transparent is not really a politic act, is to make a new type of architecture for EA. I just don't really understand how to reach a transparency.
Yeah, you're right. But there's so many things in the detail also, It's not just one thing. It's, 50 different small steps and thousands of small decisions that you need to take, also concerning the architecture and the step in the architecture. So, for example, you can use architectures which have more parts that are trained on proprietary data and some which have less. That's one step. You can try to investigate each of the components. We found something which is very important in relation to training data, which would be interesting for art people, which is called the aesthetic score. And this gives a weight to images in the training process. But no one knows who determines it. What is it made of? Who decides what an aesthetic score is? And if you ask, then usually you get the question, the answer, oh, it's a bunch of dudes who sat together in a Discord. So what is the aesthetic score? What is the quality? How does one determine the quality of an image? Because this will be extremely important, you know, you model, train your model. That's all of these small questions add up, you know, at the end to something important, I think. And I think actually these are aesthetical machines, these are political machines, you know, like cameras. And they should be investigated in exactly the same detailed way.
Hello. I have two mini questions. The first one is just more general. What does it feel like to work around a subject that's evolving so quickly? Perhaps it's overwhelming, but also it's a lot of material to work with. And then also coming back to the idea of opacity. I'm going to try to formulate this clearly, but in regards to just the political climate of everything happening, the rise of fascism, and also everything going on with technology, do you think that this act of disappearing or becoming opaque, or perhaps exiting a system is a possible way forward with the risks we're facing in regards to AI, or no? Okay.
No more opacity is over.
Okay.
I'm afraid, you know, it's or we have to think of completely different ways of becoming opaque and invisible. But let's say in the traditional ways, no way, no. AI, the next is quantum computing. You know, there is quantum sensors now which can sense the decay of one particle at a 10-kilometer distance. I mean, forget being invisible, you know, it's over.
Okay.
As to being obsolete, yes, you have to embrace it, I guess, if you work with this kind of technology. You know, people think it's new technology, it's in the future, but if you work with it, you're always outdated, you know. This is what it is. But on the other hand, going back to my documentary past, you know, you observe things as they happened, like a documentary photographer. No one, if you document, I don't know, the assassination of JF Kennedy, nobody tells you that your picture is outdated in 10 years, right? And if you document, as I said, the development of media, if you have an archive of media and this is what it looked like, then it's a historical record. And that's how I think of it. It's a, you know, it's a way of telling myself it's not so bad to be outdated, to ease the pain.
I was wondering if we can talk about the fun part of your work, the entertainment dimension in it, and because as we all aware, you are dealing with very strong, important issues. And it could be a little bit boring, but it's not at all. When we see one, we want to see another, and another, and another. And so I was wondering if you can say a few words about your sense of humor, as Marie-Ann mentioned in your work, and how you, in every piece you make, you dealing with the serious part and also with, you know, the fun part.
I don't know, it happens, you know. I mean, this mostly takes a long time to make each, and I get really bored. So I think it's just a way to keep myself entertained and to deal with the pain of also not knowing what the next edit is going to be.
Just coming back on what Christa said, or maybe saying it in another way, I have a true passion for This Is the Future, because there's elements of healing in that film. I can see it and see it again, and of course it's there's some sadness, but for me there's something very, very deep and very healing in the film. It's even mentioned with all the plants. And there's a quote, I think it's yours, saying, first of all, you have described this is a future as a positive look at our future, despite the impending climate crisis. And there's a beautiful quote saying, the future starts anew at any moment. So for me, that's hope as well. This moment is always in the present. This moment is always now. And yeah, for me, this I can see under, or maybe I can feel under the line some hope. Merci. Merci Hito. Merci beaucoup. Merci Mathilde. Et merci à vous tous et toutes.